10DLC, TCPA. Are they the same? Are they different? Do they interact? How do they interact if they do? And what do I need to know about it as a business owner and the messaging ecosystem? And so it's a really, really, really good question. And we're going to be digging into it today. Hi, my name's Will Craig. First off, I am not an attorney. So this is just informational. This is not legal advice. Contact your own legal counsel or your compliance team, whatever the case may be, to learn what all of this means specifically for your business. What I'm here to do today is provide high-level information about these two different frameworks, one being a legal framework and one being not a legal framework. But what you should know is that I am a co-founder of a company called Signal House, and we are a messaging provider that provides messaging specifically for CRM. So that's what our specialty is, but we can power messaging for any company that does application to person or software to person messaging. And obviously that's two-way communication for that. And one of the things that we specialize in is 10DLC, or 10-digit long code application to person messaging. So quite a mouthful, but what does this actually mean? Really, this just means that you're taking the normal 10-digit phone numbers that we all use every single day, where the first 3 digits correspond to a local area code, and you're provisioning it for a business to use to send to their customers via a software system through the process of 10DLC registration. So 10DLC registration is a 2-part process. The first part is registering your brand. Your brand is really just your business information. So it's just verifying that you're who you say you are and you're able to represent the organization with which you're submitting the information for. Now, second one is going to be campaign registration and campaign review. This is an individual review that happens upstream of your messaging provider at a direct connect aggregator. There's only 4 of these in the United States, and they have direct connections to the carrier networks, and they do this final review, and then you are good to go to send out that traffic. And so what I hear a lot of people conflate and confuse is 10DLC as a framework and as a construct, and what's required for 10DLC, and what's required for TCPA, and what TCPA is. And so we're going to talk about how they're different, how they interact, and everything else. The first thing that you need to understand is that 10DLC is not a legal framework. This is instituted by both the carriers and their partner organizations like CTIA, which is just an industry mobile organization. And they put forth a set of requirements. And so these requirements are things like your submissions, what you're actually submitting when you submit your brand and when you submit your campaign, and also website requirements. So what is on the website, in your privacy policy, and in your call to action, where someone actually consents to receive messaging for you, what that actual verbiage says is what the 10DLC registration process and those requirements are looking for. It also structures different use cases. So there are some banned use cases: lead generation, third-party lending, as well as some other high-risk financial, and then of course anything related to alcohol, firearms, tobacco, marijuana, etc. Those are also going to be banned use cases. And so that is all structured by the 10DLC framework. And so one thing that it does do, and this is kind of how 10DLC and TCPA interact, is that it does provide a means of obtaining consent to communicate with your customers. And that means of obtaining consent has to be clear and conspicuous, and it also has to have the necessary elements like the who, so what your legal company name is, what, like your messaging use case, so if you're marketing, customer support, account notification, etc. When you're actually going to be receiving messages from them, so message frequency, where they can actually see your privacy policy. Generally, it's going to be linked, but it could obviously be in a separate section with you just referencing it. How can they opt out, and how can they get help in the cost of the messaging? So message and data rates may apply. So that is all a requirement for 10DLC. When it comes to TCPA, TCPA is an actual legal framework. So it's a legal framework that was adopted by the FCC, or the Federal Communication Commission, in the early 1990s. And in its first inception was actually for both unwanted phone calls, but really unwanted faxes, because businesses used to have faxes just show up within their organization that were marketing faxes. And so that was really the initial reason of TCPA, but it's of course grown, evolved over the course of the decades now. And there's a lot of precedential court cases that have added weight to what it really means within the TCPA framework. And so when it comes to TCPA, there's a couple things that you need to know. And so one is that the way, again, that it interacts with 10DLC is that consent is the most important thing. for TCPA. You need to have express prior written consent to communicate with the individuals within your company, or your customers rather. So you need to have prior express written consent to communicate with your customers. Now, you also have special provisions of the manner in which you are communicating with them. So there are certain people, I'm one of them, I am open to a business contacting me with, potentially their private cell phone, or even just knocking on my door and letting me know about a service that I might actually really benefit from, because I am not on the do not call list. So the do not call list is something that the TCPA and the FCC brought into place, where people can fully opt out of business messaging that they did not expressly consent to. And so this is where there's a little bit of nuance. And again, I'm not an attorney, so please talk to an attorney. But you can, if you use a cell phone, text someone and say, hey, I have a pretty interesting sort of deal here that I think that you might be interested in based on our past communication and everything else. And even if they didn't expressly consent to you, if they're not on the D&C, you can argue that that is okay because you're using your cell phone and you're not using an automated telephone dialing system. So basically a software system like an auto dialer, or any kind of software system that has some kind of a component that is a random or sequential number generation kind of machine within it. So that's the legal terminology. And again, not an attorney. I am just providing the information of how they are different and kind of what is it within the scope of TCPA. So if you are using some kind of a software system, you need to absolutely 100% make sure that you have consent. I always say, even if you're using your cell phone and you're just typing in a phone number that is from someone that has provided you their phone number before, but maybe not expressly consented, I would still always urge you to get consent, because the number one thing that's going to hurt your business is if people complain. Even if they are not on the do not call list, they might complain that your business just continues to cold call them. And so that is something that I would absolutely be aware of. But the do not call list is probably one of the most important things within the TCPA regulations or within the kind of FTC framework. And that's because on this do not call list, if you contact any of those individuals and they have not given prior express written consent to communicate with you, you are opening yourself up for a lot of pain, because there's a lot of penalties associated with TCPA. And this is, again, how they're different. For 10DLC, if you skirt the 10DLC regulations and sort of framework there, then it's not great. But the worst case scenario, you're going to get your EIN blocked by the carriers. You'll never be able to send another message with that EIN. So if you register for company A and you're really sending out messages for company C, you could risk getting your EIN blocked or getting your messaging campaign shut down. If you are messaging people that you do not have prior express written consent to message, you are putting yourself in a world of hurt, because each of those messages carries a financial penalty, meaning every single message carries its own financial penalty. And this is why class action lawsuits can balloon into the tens of millions of dollars. It's not worth it. Get consent. So while they're different, 10DLC is not a legal framework. TCPA is a legal framework. What you need to be aware of is the consent aspect. And so if you're a business owner, if you're someone operating within this ecosystem, get consent. So I hope this video was educational. I hope it was helpful for you to understand the differences between 10DLC and TCPA. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Share it with someone who maybe just doesn't know the difference or is a little bit confused, or someone that it could help. We post videos 5 days per week on our YouTube channel, where we do educational videos within the messaging ecosystem. So if you want to reach out to us directly, you can reach out to me at will@signalhouse.io. You can also go to our website, signalhouse.io. We have some incredible messaging products there. We have a HubSpot application. We resell our APIs that you can easily integrate into any of your own proprietary software systems. And we are launching a Go High Level application very, very soon. So thank you so much. Subscribe to our channel if it's helpful, and we will see you in the next one.